broadcasting from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk. Welcome to the Gaily Show, the only daily LGBTQ radio news and talk show in the United States. I'm your host, John Parker. I want to acknowledge there's a lot happening in the news, and coming up after us, we've got the best progressive news and analysis with the Matt McNeil Show on AM 950 Radio in Minneapolis, and Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820. For us today, it's our weekly episode where we take a step back and we are part of a series called Unpack This For Me. This is where we bring in an expert guest to join us to unpack a particular issue facing the LGBTQ and allied community. Today, here's what our guest is going to be unpacking for us: democracy. Specifically, LGBTQ candidates running and serving in office at all levels, not just in the US, but globally. And my guest is Ori Givens. Ori is the Vice President of Communications at the Victory Institute. He previously served in communication leadership roles at the New York City Anti-Violence Project and the Teleperformance Group. As a journalist, producer, and news director, he's worked for Spectrum News 1, Radio Free Brooklyn, and Advocate News. The Victory Institute invests in the next generation of LGBTQ plus public leaders. They support a pipeline, if you will, for members of the queer community into public service roles and elected official roles. They do this work through candidate trainings, research, internships, and fellowships for aspiring electoral candidates. They also lead a nonprofit, nonpartisan program where LGBTQ folks can submit their resumes to the Victory Institute if they're interested in serving in a presidential administration. Victory Institute reviews those and then helps them secure full and part-time positions within that given presidential administration. And they also work globally with LGBTQ candidates in a number of countries, including Argentina, Brazil, India, Slovakia, South Africa, Taiwan, amongst many others. So, Ori, welcome to the Gaily Show.
Thank you so much, Don, for having me on the Gaily Show. Good to speak with your folks and talk about democracy, how we're protecting it.
It's something that's, front of mind for a few folks.
Right now.
I don't know why, but I thought, maybe let's talk about democracy. All right. So I'd love to start, if we can, and I pulled up the numbers from your excellent report. So the Victory Institute does a lot of research, and every year you put out a report called Out for America, where you provide a census account of the known LGBTQ plus elected officials in the United States. And there were some pretty interesting numbers here. One was that there were 1,334 known out LGBTQ plus elected officials in the United States in 2025, as of the report that you published in June. Tell us about the report and what you all found this year.
So yeah, we do this survey, this census of LGBTQ representation across the country once a year. And it's really meant for us to track the growth of LGBTQ elected representation across the country. We have around 1,334, which has fluctuated a little bit as people have left office and come back into office, but that's our official number as of May 2025. And what is most unique about this data is that, one, we're the only group that's really tracking LGBTQ elected representation around the country. But we've seen so much growth since we began to track this data back in 2017, almost 200% growth in LGBTQ representation since then at all levels of government. And each year we keep on getting higher. Each year we keep on expanding our reach into places where we haven't had as much representation, but we still have so long to go and so far to go. I'm from Ohio originally, and we just found out recently that we have a second LGBTQ representation in the state legislature. Someone just came out, and that literally doubled the number of LGBTQ elected officials in the state legislature from 1 to 2. So when I tell you how important that is and how every elected official matters, that really is the crux of the story. Getting somebody elected in a local city hall, in a county office, in the state legislature can have so much impact. And although we don't necessarily work with the election piece on the Victory Institute side, what we do is we help to support those who are seeking office, who do want to work in office, or who are already working in office and want to gain more skills and insights.
Something that stood out for me in looking at the report was, let's assume that we're about 10% of the population in America, the LGBTQ community, and 0.26% of US elected officials are part of the LGBTQ plus community. Known officials, so not including obviously folks who haven't come out yet.
Right. So that means that we need to elect, or we need to get at least 46,000, almost 47,000 more people into elected office, which is, it's a lot, right? It's a lot, especially if you look at all across the country, at every level of government. We've made some big gains, right? We have 3 LGBTQ governors. We have, I believe, 3 LGBTQ attorneys general. We have 11 or 12, I miscount sometimes, of the amount of LGBTQ people that are serving in the House of Representatives. We have 1 senator in Senator Tammy Baldwin. So there's a lot of room to grow. If you just look at the Congress, for instance, we have 535 members of Congress between the House and the Senate. So that would mean to have equitable representation, we need around 53 people from across the state. So that's a good 41 more people that we need to support and help get to the level of representing us at the federal level. So there's a lot of ground to gain, but we have made so many strides. And part of that is because, as you mentioned earlier, Victory Institute is working to train and develop the next set of leaders. And many of the leaders that you see now, like Sarah McBride and Jared Polis, have been involved in our program.
We are talking with Ori Givens, Vice President of Communications at the Victory Institute. And for folks, I want this entire hour, if you have ever thought to yourself, should I run for office? This is your sign.
Mm-hmm.
You should be running right now. It's not enough to just write a petition or post something on social media or donate money. If you've ever thought about doing that, let this be the sign to you listening in your car or when you're making dinner or drinking your morning coffee. Like, this is it. You need to be running.
We said one of our famous legacies in Harvey Milk, said he's here to recruit you. We're here to recruit more people to get involved in public service, to engage in civil action wherever they are at the local, state, or federal level. It's so important right now to be engaged, to pay attention, and to support LGBT candidates and elected officials.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And there were some other interesting numbers from the report that I was looking at. Transgender representation since 2017 increased by 783%. Transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming representation in public office has increased by 1,800%. And LGBTQ plus elected officials of color have increased by 421% since 2017. I mean, this is excellent. I mean, it's, on the one hand, you're like, this is amazing growth. And then you're still looking like, okay, well, we're only 0.26%.
Exactly.
We're headed in the right direction.
Growth. We are headed in the right direction, and it's important to celebrate our wins. We have done a lot of work to help increase the amount of trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming, gender diverse folks in office. We've also been very intently working to help increase the amount of Black, Indigenous, Latine, other folks of color who are LGBTQ to get into office. We have specific fellowships that are geared towards these communities, whether it's our Women Out to Win fellowships, which work with specifically women, trans women, cis women, and non-binary gender expansive folks. That allows us to give direct support and resources to those folks who are looking to enter in public service. The reality is that the LGBT community is very diverse, right? We don't all look the same. We come from different backgrounds, different racial backgrounds, different ethnic backgrounds, different class backgrounds, different parts of the country. Some of us live in cities, some of us live in suburbs, some of us live in rural areas, some of us live in red states, some of us live in blue states, and we need LGBTQ representation in all of those places. So it's important for us to not only build representation overall, but make sure that representation reflects the true diversity of our communities, whether that be racial, ethnic, or otherwise.
And I think there's something that we also bring to these elected roles, and I'm thinking, very specifically here of the Michigan Attorney General, Dana Nessel, who identifies as lesbian. And a lot of Democratic attorney generals have been going after the Trump administration and suing them, suing him and the MAGA administration for trying to get hospital systems to stop providing gender affirming care for kids and those under 18 years old. And I just thought it was very interesting, AG Nestle's take on it, where she put hospital systems in that state on notice and said, well, wait a minute, for you all, the availability of federal funding does not dictate whether or not you comply with state laws. And I think she's the only one that did that. And I thought that was a very interesting, the way that she was looking at the issue and saying accountability comes on multiple fronts here. And I think that's some of the value, particularly not just definitely when it comes to LGBTQ issues, but also looking at like, how do we protect democracy? There are viewpoints that candidates can bring. I'm not putting you on the spot to agree or not agree with that, because it does a question that I was getting from a person offline here was, Victory Institute supports LGBTQ candidates regardless of party?
Correct. Yep.
Right.
So we're issue agnostic and we are nonpartisan. So overall, and again, I want to be clear that our services are open to anyone who's LGBTQ and wants to learn about campaigning, wants to be a part of our network. On the fund side, on the Victory Fund side, which is where we endorse LGBTQ candidates, there are criteria that you have to meet. But they're really not issue-based. So you have to be pro-equality. You have to support LGBTQ community and bodily autonomy, reproductive rights, and those types of things. So we do want people to view our organizations as policy agnostic. Our elected officials represent the whole gamut of policy positions. They support and endorse the policies that are really important to them and their constituents. And that changes from location to location. But we as an organization are here to support LGBTQ elected officials that are working to protect equality across the country and around the world.
We are talking with Vice President of Communications at the Victory Institute, Ori Givens. We have to take a break here, and I need to remind folks, programming note, for those in Minneapolis, tomorrow is National Coming Out Day. We will be broadcasting live from National Coming Out Day luncheon here in Minneapolis. So we will be preempting the final half hour of Stephanie Miller from 10:30 to 11, and the first half hour of Tom Hartman from 11 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. So please be sure to tune in for that special broadcast from National Coming Out Day luncheon. You're listening to The Gaily Show. More after this break. Welcome back to The Gaily Show. I am John Parker. We are coming up on the bottom of the hour. This is our weekly episode we call Unpack This For Me, where we sit down with an expert guest to take a deep dive into an issue facing the LGBTQ and allied community. My guest today is Ori Givens, Vice President of Communications at the Victory Institute. Before the break, we were talking about an excellent research that Victory Institute does around the census, if you will, the number of elected candidates, LGBTQ, across the country at all levels of government. Something else that you all do, Ori, is two recent reports. Was one around the mental health of LGBTQ elected officials, which I thought was very interesting given the time that we are in right now, and also the experiences of LGBTQ plus women candidates, which I believe the subheading was a report from the When We Run survey. Can you tell us a little bit about those? We don't have to get into the nitty gritty of those reports, but can you give us sort of an overview of both of those and what you all found out?
Yeah, so I'll start with the report around mental health. This was through a partnership with one of our amazing partners, Otska, and we found in talking with our elected officials that they were experiencing distress when it comes to serving in elected office, sometimes directly from serving, sometimes indirectly. Now, we know that the political climate has become harrowing. It has become vitriol driven. It has become, hateful. The last election cycle in 2024, we saw so many hate driven messages At the local, state, and the federal level, we would get elected officials reaching out to us saying, can you help me? They're sending out campaign mailers attacking me for being LGBTQ. They're sending out, they're calling me, a pedophile, or they're calling me
Mm.
this. These are real things that happened to some of our candidates. And so we wanted to really explore how how their mental health was affected, and hopefully be able to provide some solutions and support. So we released this report, and it really confirmed what we knew, which is that yes, the political vitriol can have an impact on LGBTQ folks that are serving in government. It also showed us that sometimes this work can motivate them to continue to serve. It can be kind of a bit of a double-edged sword. Sometimes when you're seeing the harm, you're feeling the vitriol, it can make you retreat. Understandably so. But then also, some people are really running toward it. It is motivating them because they want to make change in their community. Another thing we realized when we did that report is that we needed to provide some sort of support for our elected officials who are really on the front lines of the fight of equality. So we created a partnership in conjunction with a partner that we have on the East Coast called Equality MD. And Equality MD provides mental health services to LGBTQ folks. So we were able to partner with them to provide in
Wow.
remote counseling and group counseling to a key subset of our LGBTQ elected officials. In a blind program, I don't even know who's in the program, but I do know that they're really having a positive experience, being able to talk about some of these issues. The person that they're working with is used to dealing with elected officials, so they have a safe space to be able to talk through some of the mental health challenges that they're experiencing. We also know that your lived intersectional experience is going to have an impact on not only how you're able to serve, but how you're able to show up in the world, which is why we explored the experiences of women who are running for office, and people of color, particularly our Black candidates who are running for office. And we often find that those, communities within the community, the problems that they face exacerbate, the risks for mental health issues exacerbate, and often it's harder for them to get support. So really, one of the big tenets of the work at LGBTQ Victory Institute is to provide those resources to support our elected official network, and to help give them resources to do the very important work that they're charged to do.
We're here with Ori Givens, Vice President of Communications at the Victory Institute. I'm curious again. I'm hoping for folks who are listening right now, if you've ever thought about running for office, this is your sign. Big flashing sign. You need to
Big
be running
sign, big
for
rainbow sign.
office. um, I think about everyone is talking about the 2026 congressional elections,
Hmm.
and I love how you are all looking at all levels of government. What is Victory Institute's role? Is it enough to just be talking about Congress and the congressional elections in 2026?
So I'll talk about it a little bit from the Victory Institute side, and then I'll put on my Magic Victory Fund hat, and I'll talk about it a little bit as well, for compliance purposes. But on the Victory Institute side, we support candidates at all levels because all levels of candidates need support. Think of a person that's running for office for the first time for a city council or a town council in a town that's maybe 10,000 people. They're probably not going to have a campaign staff. They're probably not going to have, even exposure or access to resources to help them learn. So the programming that we put forth in the Victory Institute side, specifically our signature candidate and campaign training, gives them the brass tacks they need to be able to do that campaigning work, to do that electoral work. And they may not be able to get those resources anywhere else. We think that it's important to invest in all levels because the local level and the state level probably have more impact on people's daily lives than the federal level. If you think about, the hundreds of bills that have been introduced at the state level across the country,
Mhm.
sometimes it's our elected officials that are working to speak up, stand up, and hopefully stop some of those bills. You know, we have so many cities that are around the country that are trying to create sanctuary spaces or strengthening their human rights laws to protect LGBTQ individuals, or particularly trans individuals. That happens because we have allies and LGBTQ folks in these bodies that are able to speak up for their communities. And I really think it's important that you talk about allies, John, because we need allies in this fight. You mentioned earlier that we're only 10% of the population. You can't pass a bill if you're only 10% of the population. You can't get somebody elected necessarily if you're only 10% of the population. So it's important for us to build allegiances, to build networks. You know, we need our allies to support us now more than ever, to use that played out phrase, because everything matters right now. Every piece of support matters. Every dollar matters. Every elected official that we have serving in the halls of power matters.
I wanted to bring up the multiple layers there because I feel like it's not just Congress. I guess it's our editorial position here at the Gaily Show.
Yeah.
Like those state level races are so important, and if you don't know who's on your ballot or what those
Yeah.
open ones are, like please just at least look at that. But also consider now is a perfect time if you want to start putting together a campaign or think about doing that. Now is the time.
Yeah.
We are here with Ori Givens, Vice President of Communications at the Victory Institute. I have to fit in a quick break here. We're going to have more with Ori when we come back. You are listening to The Gaily Show on AM 950 Radio, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Stay tuned. More after the break. Coming to you from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk. Welcome back to the Gaily Show. I'm your host, John Parker. It is 33 minutes after the hour. It's our weekly Unpack This For Me episode, where an expert guest joins us for the hour to unpack a particular issue affecting the LGBTQ and allied community. Today, we're talking about democracy and specifically LGBTQ candidates running for office at all levels. And again, I'm going to keep repeating this. If you are someone who's ever thought, should I run for office? This is your big, flashing, all fireworks sign that yes, you should be doing that. My guest today is Ori Givens, Vice President of Communications at the Victory Institute. Previously served in communication leadership roles at the NYC Anti-Violence Project and the Teleperformance Group. The Victory Institute invests in the next generation of queer public leaders, supporting a strong pipeline for members of our community pursuing public service. Before the break, Ori, we were talking about 2026 and sort of the layout of the land that Victory Institute is seeing. If you were to put on your Victory Fund hat, what is that perspective?
Yeah, so I appreciate that, John. And to give the audience some understanding, Victory Fund is our 527 organization. It's a political organization. It's a sister organization to Victory Institute. And that's the organization that works to select and endorse LGBTQ candidates running for office at local, state, and national levels. So on the Institute side, we train them. On the fund side, we help to get them elected. And we see so much interest on the fund side of folks that want to run for office. We're seeing it on the Institute side as well with our training. But right now we have about 250 candidates nationwide who are running for office at local, state level. And we have several, about a little over a dozen or more, that are running at the federal level for 2026. And those are just the ones that are endorsed by us. We feel in the pipeline, and there's a lot of anecdotal information around the pipeline of LGBTQ congressional candidates, we could reach 80 to 100 in the 2026 cycle. And could you imagine if we had even half of those on Capitol Hill for us? You know, it would be a game changer. So I did want to mention that there are candidates that are running in your local areas. Those of you that are listening from Chicagoland, we have Kevin Morrison and we have Mike Simmons who are running to represent you in and the House. So pay attention to your local areas. There's probably people that are running either this year or looking to run next year that need your support. If you like to volunteer or go knock on doors or make phone calls, campaigns are always looking for people to help. So there's so many ways to plug in. I wanted to just to shout that out a little bit, and I'll put back on my Victory Institute hat.
Okay. Perfect. A question that I was just thinking about actually in the break. So obviously there's like elected officials, representatives, and
Mm-hmm.
senators, state city councils, etc. Do you also find folks who are running for judicial
We
candidates,
do.
like Supreme Courts and judges like that? Because I mean, obviously they're judges, but they do have to go through campaigns.
So it depends on the level. We do support we do support judicial candidates at the local and state level, and we have several judicial elected officials in our network on the institute side that are at the local and state level. When you get into federal, it becomes an appointment.
Right.
So we do support appointments, but that's not necessarily the focus of our work. But absolutely, local and state local and state judges are very much a part of our network.
That's so interesting. So if you are a lawyer right now and thinking of running for a judgeship, there's the Victory Institute who can
Yes.
provide some candidate training for
In
you.
fact, our former president and CEO, who is Mayor Nice Parker, who was the former mayor of Houston, Texas, is now running for Harris County judge. Which the judges are different in Texas. They're more of like a county supervisor type of thing. But yeah, there's so many opportunities to get engaged. There are so many offices and ways to serve the public. And we need LGBTQ people in all of them.
Talk to us. We've had a very US focused conversation thus
Mm-hmm.
far, but you do a lot of work globally as well. And just
Absolutely.
a couple weeks ago, we had Nino Goschel from Outright International, who was
Mm-hmm.
talking to us about their reporting on the super election year of 2024, where LGBTQ rights and candidates were all over the world. There was, elections everywhere last year. They categorized it as a super election year. Talk to us about the work you do then with candidates abroad or folks who are thinking about running for office in their respective countries.
So I appreciate you asking that, John, because really this work is global, and Victory Institute is dedicated to raising elected engagement and representation, not just here in the United States, but all around the world. We have a dedicated global team that works out of Latin America that is really dedicated to doing the same training, development, networking, connection that we're doing here in the US. In fact, we just completed our conference of international leaders from Latin America and the Caribbean. It was in Peru. And we hosted about 200 LGBTQ elected officials, human rights activists, and leaders in Lima, Peru for several days to help drive the work for the region. And what came out of that work is what's called the Lima Agenda. And I'd love to come back on and share more details about it as we roll it out. But this really is a framework that these elected officials can fight for equality and representation and LGBTQ political inclusion in all of their respective countries. We had the blessing of being able to celebrate World Pride this year in Washington, D.C. And it was so amazing to be able to connect with some of our international leaders. I think of, for instance, we have an elected official named Carla Antonelli, who is a senator in Spain. She's the first trans woman to be elected, I believe, in the Spanish federal government. And hearing her story was just so inspiring. We realized that this work is global, just like the efforts to stop equality from spreading around the world. There are just as many efforts to push equality around the world. And just like our elected officials here are doing that work, our elected officials around the globe are doing that work as well. So we work to build capacity, to provide training and development, to provide resources, to connect our elected officials who are in Latin America, the Caribbean, and beyond. We do direct work in about 11 countries and are always looking for more places to engage, because that makes us all stronger, right?
Mhm.
And this fight for LGBT equality is a global fight. and we have to face it in all these different locations.
I love the way that you framed that because I feel like, and I'm even going to say here at the Gaily Show, we're kind of guilty of focusing on the attacks and not as
Mm,
much focusing on the pushback or, new laws or countries that are implementing things or new candidates that are running or elected officials that are running there. And so that is something that we're aware of it. Listeners, we're going to try to be refocusing that. We're joined today by Ori Givens, Vice President of Communications at the Victory Institute. I want to be mindful here and how I phrase this next question because you are issue agnostic. Earlier this week, we interviewed Dakari Lariat, who is running for the open Senate seat in Alabama,
mhm,
identifies as gay, and was talking about how there was an opponent of his that went onto it was I don't know if it was TV or radio, where the title of it was called Kitchen Table Issues. And instead of
mhm,
talking about kitchen table issues, they just denigrated trans people the entire
mhm,
time during the
mhm,
interview. And I know there are some folks, some pollsters and some think tanks who are like, don't even say LGBTQIA, still looking at you, third way.
mhm,
And how do you, if a candidate wants to come forward and go, I want to run for office, but there's a lot of folks, and this is bipartisan, frankly. There's a gay lieutenant governor in Virginia who's they're trying to kick him out from the
mhm.
GOP and not be the candidate there. What is your message to folks who may say, like, I want my party to win, but I think I might be a liability given my identity. We'll just set aside positions for right now. Like, how do you navigate that with those candidates? What are those conversations they should be having?
So I think, every elected official goes through their own journey with regard to how open they want to be, how they want to talk about the issues that matter to them. We encourage our LGBTQ elected officials to be open, to be honest, and to connect with their constituents in meaningful ways. Every city, every county, I live in New York City, it seems like every couple blocks has a different viewpoint on politics, on the issues. And so when you're an elected official, your primary job is to represent the issues that are important to your constituents. Now, it's very clear right now, LGBTQ issues are on the forefront for all of us.
Mhm.
Preserving equality, preserving, diversity, making sure that these are things that are celebrated and not denigrated is something that's very important. But what is also important to people is making sure that they can pay their rents, making sure that they can afford food to put on their table for their families, making sure that they can, get a good job or go to school if they want to, making sure that they can get down their road without hitting a pothole. It's going to be very different issues that people want their elected officials to focus on. So those elected officials are going to focus on whatever those issues are that their constituents need. And that doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, or indifferent. You're there to get elected and you're there to represent the communities that you serve. We don't want to encourage people to not talk about things like their identity. In fact, we want people to hold their identity central to them. But understanding that everywhere you are, that conversation may look differently. We have more trans elected officials than we've had before in our history, and they're talking about being trans. They're talking about LGBTQ issues. They're not shying away from it, but they're also talking about, how can we improve, the lives of our communities? How can we build better resources so that there's jobs for people to go to, so that there's housing? So it's a both end situation. Um, Kitchen table issues are whatever you talk about at your kitchen table. And sometimes
Mhm.
that's LGBTQ issues. Sometimes that's the price of milk. And
Interesting.
sometimes it's both. It just depends
Yeah.
on what is important to you.
I've never heard it framed that way before. Oh, I'm going to be borrowing that and crediting you
Yeah. My
appropriately.
kitchen table is different than somebody else's kitchen table. I talk about all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, to be fair, I don't even have a kitchen table, but if I did, she would be busy.
I love it. Um, no, thank you for the way that you're framing that right now, because I think for folks who may be going, yeah, I'd like to run, but they're hearing, Tucker Carlson going on whatever he's on right now and saying that Pete Buttigieg isn't even gay, that's a whole
Yeah,
conspiracy theory. You're like,
it's just
I would want
wild.
to be talking about the issues and what the people that I be representing want to, talk about. And instead I might get dragged into either I'm a liability or I have to prove somehow that I'm, part of the queer community. I mean, it's bonkers right now.
Exactly. Well, and I want to be clear, we should be vocal about LGBTQ rights. We should be vocal about equality, whether you're an elected official or not, because of what is happening right now in this landscape. It is not a time to hedge and to not be full-throated in your support of LGBTQ equality. But many elected officials have many other things to talk about than that. It is one issue in a myriad of things that are important to community and to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a myriad of issues that are spoken at the kitchen table, whether we have them or don't.
We have them or don't.
I do want to take a moment to shout out, if you're interested in following great political coverage locally. Windy City Times is doing some amazing, our official news partner in Illinois. They're doing some excellent reporting, not just in Chicago, but throughout the state of Illinois about LGBTQ candidates who are running. Our news partner, Washington Blade, has the pulse of what's happening in DC and has that larger look there. And of course, our partner in Texas, the Dallas Voice, always has some spicy. I love the way they do their coverage down there. It's always some spicy tea that they're bringing to us about what's happening for LGBTQ candidates in Texas. I have to fit in one more break, but we still have lots to get to here on The Gaily Show with Ori Givens, Vice President of Communications at the Victory Institute. You can keep the conversation going on Blue Sky. We're at thegailyshow.org on Blue Sky. We have lots more progressive news and analysis there. You can also sign up for the AM 950 radio newsletter if you are in Minnesota. Head to am950radio.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, and you can sign up there. More after this break. Welcome back to The Gaily Show. I'm John Parker. We're coming up on the top of the hour. It's our weekly Unpack This For Me episode. Our guest today is Ori Givens, Vice President of Communications at the Victory Institute. As we've been talking today about running for office, again, big flashing sign. This is your sign. Time to run. And I want to take this final segment to talk about some upcoming trainings that you all have, Ori. So I was looking at the website and I see that there is a training let's see here, and on December 4th. Wait, what is it? There's another one, though, in October here. Informational session. There it is. On October 27th from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What can folks expect at an informational session on Zoom?
Yes, so our Time to Run initiative is really a way to get people in the door. Those people that you're talking about that are like, you know what, maybe I do want to run for office, or I want to learn more about the process. So these webinars are very low barrier ways to get in, to learn more about the process, learn more about our programming and how we can support. Gives some strategies. You get to network with folks who are in the same space, and it's really a way to like dip your toe in, right? Then we also have what are called public leadership summits, and we may have one more through the year, but I think we're focused on our 2026 calendar, and more info will be coming about that soon. But these are in-person events held all around the country. We held them in different places like Pittsburgh, Denver last year, to really connect with people on the ground, to answer questions, to talk about what it means to be an elected office and what the pathway looks like to get there. So folks can sign up for those. They're free. If you want to follow us on social at Victory Institute, Victory at Victory INST, I believe, or you can go to our website at victoryinstitute.org. You can find our training calendar. We have 2 candidate and campaign trainings every year, and these are our longer, in-depth, boot camps for learning how to be an elected official, how to run for office. And so these are going to be happening next year. We don't have the dates public yet, But if you follow us, you'll find out more information there. So these are all really programs that allow us to connect with people that might be interested, to give them opportunities to learn more information about what it's like to be an elected official. Oftentimes, there will be current elected officials in the session so that you can ask them questions
Oh,
directly.
wow.
And they're just really, really good opportunities to be able to learn some basic information to move you on your journey towards hopefully, running for something.
I see on December 4th in Washington, D.C., there's a free one-day candidate 101 training. What if there's a folks that's like, okay, I went to college, but I got a chemistry degree, or I'm an OBGYN, like I don't have a political science degree, or I don't have a public affairs degree. Like, can I run? What do you say to that person?
I mean, so many elected officials, and I'm not just speaking about LGBTQ elected officials, I'm talking about elected officials in general, didn't come through the political pipeline. They were teachers, they were doctors, they were lawyers, they were civil rights activists, and they came to politics because they knew that politics was the place where they could help to make the changes that they wanted to see in their private sector lives. So oftentimes they'll see challenges that they want to fix, and then they'll work to get into elected office to fix them. So I think our democracy, our political environment is strengthened when we have a diversity of thoughts. And now I want to be clear about that. Diversity of thought can mean a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of different perspectives. And I think every voice, has a place. But I do think that we need to look at more progressive ideals, and how do we get and create the progressive environment that we want in our society and in our culture. I assume that your listeners want the same progressive, equality minded, country that I think I do. And so we have to be intentional about that. Our vote matters. How we and who we support matters. So I would tell those folks that may not have a political background but want to serve, you absolutely could come check out our programming, especially if you're LGBTQ, and find your place in politics.
I'm talking with Ori Givens, Vice President of Communications at the Victory Institute. What about the person who's sitting there and listening to this and going, yeah, I like it, I'm digging it, but doesn't it take a lot of money to run for office? Like, I don't even know how to begin to raise all that cash. Like, should that be a barrier to them going to an informational session?
No, don't let that be a barrier. I think there's a long process, right, to get ready to actually run for office. You may go to a session and it may not be the right time. You may want to get involved in a campaign and work on a campaign before you actually run for office. I think that, yes, there's a lot of money in politics, but especially when you're talking about the local level, it's not as much about money. Now, when you get up to the higher offices, certainly, and you're trying to book ads on television stations or pay a field team, it can get a little bit more pricey. And then that's when our sister organization, Victory Fund, we help to support that fundraising piece on the Victory Fund side if you're an endorsed candidate. But if you're not, if you're looking to run for a local office or looking to be involved in local politics, oftentimes there's not a cost involved and you can just do it. You can just get involved. So don't let cost be a barrier. Don't let money be a barrier. If you are passionate about it, you can rally people around your cause, and then all those other things will follow.
Perfect. I could have talked to you for a whole other hour, Ori, but we're at the end of our time. You can connect with the Victory Institute at victoryinstitute.org. Just search for that on your social media channel and you'll find them as well. Thank you, Ori, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, John, and I'm happy to come back anytime.
Oh, we'll be reaching out. We'll be reaching out because I have a feeling that democracy, this isn't the end of the conversation about
Oh
democracy.
no, we're not even through this year yet, and we have a whole new election. So we'll be in touch because there's a lot happening.
It's a whole other
And we're
thing.
thankful to you and thankful to LGBTQ media for uplifting our stories and being the pulse of our community. So thank you all for doing the work that you do, because it's not easy to track all the things that are happening and still be positive about it.
Exactly. All right, up next on WCPT 820, it's Chew's Views with Richard Chew on AM 950 Radio. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Stay tuned after that for Native Roots Radio, and then Ghostbox Radio at 10 p.m. Central. And until tomorrow, America, keep it queer.